Hey, Emily, how are you?
I'm good. I'm so good. Thanksgiving really rejuvenated me, which was
Great.
nice.
I love when I hear that answer, not like I had the worst triggering moments.
Well, yes, it was definitely not triggering. It was incredible. It was indulgent. We ate, we drank, we played lots of games. But when we did come back to our apartment, it had been raining in San Francisco, and literally, like, all of the ants in the neighborhood moved into our apartment. So
Oh,
that was kind of shocking, but it was kind of, you have to have some nice things to get some weird things happen.
exactly.
Um, so the Ant-Man cam. But besides that, that was the triggering moment.
Well, it's so nice to see you in person. I spoke to you on the phone, and for our listeners, we were introduced by a mutual friend, Sarah. Hey, Sarah. Um, But when I spoke to you, I immediately knew that I wanted to interview you because you're on your own journey right now, which is very exciting.
Sure is. Sure is.
I love how you took a deep breath.
Yeah. There are those moments when, you hear journey and you're like, oh, could I go back to the corporate world? Like, could I ever be a normal person? And
Yeah.
I couldn't. Like, it literally, I would be the most horrible employee to any person that worked with me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what awakening is, right? Like you can't go back to where you were, which is part of the hard part, right?
Yeah. I mean, even though it's like the easier way out and it seems normal and it seems consistent, but there's something, and I think it's similar to New Yorkers too. I think a lot of New Yorkers love the struggle. And
Mhm.
like, I loved living on a sixth floor walk up and telling everyone that I lived on a sixth floor walk up
Yeah.
and had to carry my groceries 2 miles and then up 6 flights. So in a way, that's kind of entrepreneurship, is like creating your own struggle
Right.
and problem solving constantly.
Hmm. So I just want to go back to the beginning. You're from Connecticut,
Mhm.
and did you go to college? I'm assuming you did.
I did go to college, and I went to a very small college in Ohio called Denison, and
Mhm.
it's 2,100 students. But I really wanted to be a big fish in a little pond because I knew that I needed to be in New York City. Like,
Mhm.
I wrote my college essays about New York City. It was my emerald city. I couldn't wait to be there.
Mhm.
Um, but funny enough, I chose middle of nowhere, Ohio for 4 years to
Yeah.
incubate.
Well, did
And
you know what you wanted to be or do?
no idea.
Mhm.
No, no idea, but I bet you if you had asked me at 18, I had some ideas that I would have tossed out there.
Mhm.
Um, I knew that I loved working with people and I loved Spanish, and I ended up becoming a communications and Spanish major, which really at the end of 4 years left me in the same place at the beginning of 4 years. Was, what do I do now with
Mhm.
Spanish and communications? So I did what I think a lot of people wanted to do or tried to do or did. At 2009, the economy wasn't ideal.
Mhm.
So I had studied abroad in Madrid, and I loved Spain, and I loved living and being immersed in another culture. And I had this terrible fear that if I moved straight to New York City, I would be in a job that was not my desired job, but it was a job just for the sake of having a job. And so I picked a country that I'd never been to before, that I heard was a good price, or like had very reasonable exchange rate for us. And I moved down to Argentina.
Mhm.
And I just said it over and over and over and over again until I did it. And I think that is something that is a theme in my life, is when I say something over and over and over again, I hold myself to it and I end up doing it.
Mhm.
So
Oh.
similar to starting my own company, I had said it over and over and over and over again until finally I was like, I have to do this or
Mhm.
I'm a hypocrite.
Right. So what did you do in Spain and then did you have like a regular job and then you moved to Argentina?
So Spain, I was in college and I had studied abroad. So no, I was going to school there. But in Argentina, yes, I used it kind of as like my incubator phase of life, where I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I had so many curiosities and hungers. So I tried teaching English as a foreign language. I worked at a wine company that sold limited edition Argentine wines to Americans. And so we did wine tastings. And I learned so much about wine.
Mhm.
Before that, I thought like Yellowtail was fancy. So I learned a ton about wine. I was like, oh, $8.99. That's expensive. White. I only drink white. Like now I can't even stomach white. I'm obsessed with red wine. It's changed a lot. And then I also learned, I met this woman who had a really cool job where she was capitalizing on all the expats and all the study abroad students, and she was having their parents send them care packages. So the company was called Send Love BA. And so I saw what she was doing and I was obsessed with it. And I was like, I want to work for you. I want to work for you for free. I will work for you just to learn from you. And so that was basically my number one entry point into entrepreneurship, and just like seeing the potential of what being your own boss looks like.
Oh my gosh. Okay, wait a minute. I need to back this ship up. Like, I have like a feeling of like how you are. Like you're very much, I'm going to do my own thing. There's no certainty. I don't know if this is going to work out. The unknown. Like, how did you cultivate that so early?
I don't know. That's a great question for my therapist tomorrow.
Like something that your parents like instilled in you?
Joking, all jokes aside, both my parents as a couple were divorced growing up. But my mom and my dad were really unique in the sense that they co-founded an institute in in Florida called the Upledger Institute. And it was all on like craniosacral therapy and healing touch and body work. And so as a kid, they would have these people visiting from across the country and out of the country, and be doing body work on each other. And I was kind of passed from person to person. And I think I was always able to adapt to that person, which has made me really adaptable in moving forward in life. And then after my parents divorced, I was actually born in Florida, and I was 12 when I moved to Connecticut. And my mom was kind of like she was like the Goldilocks in a way. She was Goldilocks and the Three Little Bears, or the Three Bears, Goldilocks and the Bears. And she, one school was too preppy and she didn't like how strict they were. One school was too hippie and too far away. One school was just right, but then she decided to move to Connecticut. So what was interesting is I was always the new girl, and I always had to find my place and my way. And a lot of that theme of moving and shifting from place to place has definitely played a part in 6 Degrees and how we do our events, where I never want anyone to feel the way that I felt on the first day of school, where you're not sure who to talk to or where to sit or what your status is. Like, I want to eliminate all of that. So it definitely is an underlying element of my organization.
Yeah. But you didn't start that right away. Did you do something when you came back to the States?
When I came back to the States, I ended up in fashion, which was hilarious. When it all was said and done. I had just been like this, I wasn't a hippy dippy girl in Argentina, but I remember talking with my then Argentine boyfriend, talking about how crazy it is that people buy diamonds for engagement and how wasteful it is for nice cars. And I just was very appreciative of very simple things. So naturally, my first job out of Argentina was at Ralph Lauren, working in special events and marketing, where I had a budget of like $50,000 an event to make sure we had like the right hairstylists come in to make sure that the servers were groomed properly or given a close shave. Like, it was so different than the world I had just left, but really, really, really powerful to learn the power of a brand, like one brand, and what it was capable of. So no, I hadn't started 6 Degrees, but I did start realizing that I was unsure of what I wanted to do with my life, and that theme came up again. Yeah. And also that craving of connection. I was always a people collector. Like, every place that I've been, I've still am friends with them. They may have attended my wedding. Like, I just love bringing people together. So I did that through potluck dinners and through supper clubs. And I would create these spreadsheets and come up with all the themes and then let people enter in if they wanted to come and what they'd be bringing. And that was my first kind of experience of bringing people from my different worlds and their different worlds into one room.
Mm-hmm. Are you an only child?
No, I'm not. I am not. I am the oldest of my set. I have a sister who's 3 years younger, and then I have 2 older half sisters who are like 50 and 52.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So okay, I'm getting this feeling that you didn't know what you wanted, but you definitely had themes that you wanted to pursue, like community. You wanted people to not feel alone. So then how did you finally have that like aha moment? This is what I want to do.
It, 6 Degrees evolved out of Supper Club in a way where one of the challenges I found with Supper Club was I would want you to talk about your moon circles to this person. And maybe you talked about the Bachelorette the whole time or the Bachelor, and you didn't talk about what I wanted you to talk about. And it really frustrated me because I was like, you're amazing. You should do amazing things together. But in that type of environment, it wasn't conducive for people coming up with amazing things. And I felt like people still, if they met you at my home, they would be like, oh, that's Emily's friend, Laura. They wouldn't be able to separate you into your own friend bucket. So I wanted to create a space where it was a neutral space and people would be able to create their own friendships and also be able to help each other out personally, professionally, and future life in their future lives. And so with 6 Degrees, that's what I intended to do. And it was only supposed to be a one-time event that happened where people met 4 matches for 15 minutes each. And then after that, people just kept asking me, they're like, when's the next event? I want to keep going. I want to invite friends. And I didn't intend for it to be more than a one-time thing, but it just kept happening. And my curiosity thread got pulled and I kept asking, like, what do I want to learn? What do I see my peers Googling? And what do I think all of us want to spend money on, but we don't want to spend so much money every single week. So I, like, one of the wake up calls that I had was going to a cheese tasting class at Murray's in the West Village. It was like an $80 cheese tasting class. And I was like, this was awesome. I had so much fun. But what a bummer that this is a special occasion to like learn something new and different. I was like, what if you could learn something new and different every single week? And then if you want to learn something deeper from that topic, you can like explore it with the teacher. So that's what I tried to do or tried to create or created.
That is so awesome. And were you working full time while you were doing this?
Yeah, I was working full time and I never in a million years thought this was going to be a business. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I kept waiting for that idea. I was like, I wonder what my idea is going to be. And all of my community members were like, you're so dumb. This is your idea. Like, your business. And like, this is a hobby. It's fine. Like, no, this is actually your idea. You need to make this something else. So it wasn't until I got like a good push and from certain individuals who really believed in me, including my mom. I remember the moment I told her I was quitting, and this was like the last point where someone could say, don't do it, you're being crazy. And she was like, I think that's a great idea. I think you'd do so much better if you could put your energy and focus into this. I was like, okay,
wow.
happening.
Yeah, I think also we don't believe that it's possible because it is so different from what we were grown to know as a career, right?
Oh, and it's so hard now living in San Francisco, sometimes explaining it to men. They're like, more men than women. Women do pose these questions as well. They're like, is this a SaaS-based product? What's the software and tech component of it? I'm like,
it's human communication.
It's the opposite of all of those things. It's people connecting and not holding eye contact.
Yeah. So what made you move to San Francisco?
My now husband, actually. So funny, serendipity was kind of the theme of my first year of business. I started my business in January of 2016 officially. Like that's when I decided to do this. I quit my job in December or left December 22nd, 2015. And at the beginning of 2016, I was like, I'm not dating. I'm keeping my energy focused on my business and on me. And of course, when you say all these things, that's when you meet the person that you're going to marry. And so I met Greg in April of that year when I was on a bachelorette party in New Orleans.
Of course.
And as one does. And I was all networking. I tried to steal his Uber. I asked him if he could introduce me to women in San Francisco because I was launching a San Francisco chapter. Well, he is, asking for my number, and I'm networking. I friended him on LinkedIn too, but not Facebook. Made out with him right afterwards, but I sent all the mixed messages. But anyways, I was coming to San Francisco the next month, and so I met him out here, and then he came out the following month, and I was hell-bent that I was never leaving New York City. Like, again, this is my Mecca. And as the cards fell, I had a lot more flexibility in my job, and that was the beauty of it. So I decided to be the less selfish one and try moving out to a new city. And funny enough, my mom's from Palo Alto originally, so it was kind of cool to connect with her old roots and try California on for size.
And how do you like it?
It took some time to, I think it was hard because it wasn't my choice. It wasn't like a city. I fell so head over heels in love with Argentina, but I chose Argentina. So I think moving for someone is really, really hard because you have to find your own voice and your own groove and your own style. And it definitely took like a good probably 8 months for me to feel more at home here and settled. And I think the biggest learning was I don't have to be busy all the time.
Yeah.
And that was hard. And I don't know if you felt that too with your moves and your changes.
Yeah, I think the shadow side of overworking and just growing up in New York and working in finance and just being overproductive and working all the time was actually easier than not. Like how you said you were taking a break, I was like, that's actually a really good idea.
Yeah, but you feel like you have to always be busy, and I felt like a failure if I wasn't busy. In New York, you're up at 6 a.m., you're in bed by 2 in the morning, then you rinse, you repeat. And here, I go to bed at 10 o'clock at night. I can tell you every Netflix show out there. Life here is a lot, and maybe this is just the time of my life too. But we're not going out as much. We're not craving drinking and going to bars and spending money. I feel like if I'm doing that, I'm doing it in the comfort of my own home.
But I think the overall vibe, because our office, we had an office in San Francisco too, my last job, and they would after work, everyone would leave work at 5, and then they'd go hiking or a soul cycle class. And I'm in the New York office, we leave at 8 and then go drinking. The cultures are so different.
It's such a different culture. And I always kind of joke, but I was exhausted the first 8 months too. It was really hard for me on an energetic level to adjust to a slower pace. I was I felt like a narcoleptic. I was like, I'm going to take another nap. I'm so tired. But I've found my own rhythm and my own energy and things that get me going. I don't feel as curious here as I did in New York. And it might be because things are a little bit more spread out, or because there's some areas that are super duper sketchy here that you'll just stumble upon and be like, okay, note to self, I'm taking Ubers everywhere. Some heroin shot up, I think 5 times in the middle of the day. Swear to God. So it's just different because it's this juxtaposition of extreme wealth and then extreme poverty in a way that you didn't experience it in New York, even though I thought I did.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I guess because the sketchy places in New York are gentrified.
Yeah.
They don't really exist anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you like crazy or homeless in New York are like drunks and like maybe panhandlers, and here they're legit. There's a lot of drug addicts
Yeah.
and a lot of mental health. But yeah, so that's been an interesting learning. But I also love the what it's offered. Like I love going to wine country. I've gone to Tahoe a few times. We drove to LA this weekend, which was so cool. It was a pain, but it was cool. And I personally love LA. If I was to move to another city in California, it would most likely be Los Angeles.
Interesting. I've never heard a New Yorker say that.
I know. If you had asked me 3 years ago, you'd probably not have heard that. But I think New York's here energy-wise, San Francisco's here, and LA's here.
Yeah.
So it's got the balance that we all strive for. How about you? Where would you move?
Well, I've tried moving to LA 3 times, but it like literally kicked me out because I obviously wasn't meant to be there. I lived in San Diego for 2 years for grad school, and I also studied abroad in Spain. I studied abroad in Granada, which I felt really at home there. If it would be somewhere else, it would probably be abroad.
Abroad? I've heard that a lot too. Go to Argentina. It's awesome.
Yeah, I love Argentina.
You've been?
Yeah, I went in 2013, I think.
So amazing. I was a vegetarian when I moved down there.
Oh my goodness.
I'm not a vegetarian now. Let's just say that. I became a full, like, never ate meat kind of person before that, and now I am a full-blown carnivore. Like, I crave burgers. I crave steak. It was a gateway.
Yeah. So I'm really interested in hearing kind of like the shift in I guess like the consciousness of your business, because you shared that you were going through your spiritual journey and that you wanted to have more, I guess, like more programming geared towards that. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, it was interesting. It's interesting to reflect on all the programming we've done as well. So I started this as a side hustle in 2014, which is crazy. This has been a part of my life every single week pretty much since 2014. Or I guess then I was doing them monthly. But a lot of the panels and discussions that I had initially were around career and around career changing and career pivoting. Because personally in fashion, I wasn't sure if that was my place and if I wanted to stay in events and if I wanted to stay in that world. And if I didn't, what did that look like? How does one switch to tech or switch to finance or switch without going to get an MBA? Because I didn't know I wanted to get an MBA either. And I thought that, so it started off there, and then it kind of melded into entrepreneurship and like understanding more about entrepreneurship and the hustle. The hustle was a really popular word for a while. And the side hustle, everyone got a side hustle.
Yeah.
And then from that, it's definitely evolved into spirituality. It's evolved into motherhood, a lot into like wellness that was not talked about back then is the way that it is talked about now. We've learned about Ayurvedic wellness. We've learned about, we've brought in nutritionists. We've learned about like self-worth, just conversations that weren't being had anywhere near my office. I wanted to have, and I wanted to make sure people were in a safe place to have them. And the craziest thing is still meeting people that are like really entrenched in the corporate world. And they're like, have you ever heard of Ayurvedic? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, ever heard of The Wing? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, have you ever heard of work? And I'm like, yes. There's just this disconnect of, I call people who are, have their own business, day walkers. And they get to experience the day. And even in the winters in New York, I really loved New York because you got to smell like this sharp air, and it was a beautiful blue sky day. But if you were in a corporate world or if you were locked at a desk, you were literally never seeing that, and it became a prison.
Yes. I remember that all too well. I just remember like my first couple months after I quit, I was like, what is everyone doing? There was so many people out, And I was like, what is everyone doing here?
You have to like give yourself permission that you're allowed to be out too. I really struggle with that still as an entrepreneur, where I treat my business like a job.
Yeah.
Where I'm going to work the hours, let's say 9 to 5, and then I'm not going to work weekends.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't treat it like a job, I think it's really easy for it to consume you and to bleed into your weekends and bleed into your vacations and not have the boundaries that you need. Because I definitely was that person who was on vacation and was like, hold on,
Mm-hmm.
respond. And then I was exhausted at the end of my vacation.
Yeah. So was this like a reflection of your own journey, this like program shift?
Definitely. Yeah. It's definitely evolved from, well, a lot of my own curiosities have been peppered in, but also what the community has wanted. Mm-hmm. Where initially I was creating a community for me, now I'm creating a community for them. Mm-hmm. And I'm a piece of the equation, but I'm a very small piece. It's now people who are attending hear about us online, they hear about us in Facebook groups, they hear about us friends of friends. And that was probably one of the more startling and like terrifying things, was that someone bought a ticket to attend an event and they had no idea how, who anyone affiliated with it.
Wow.
About the topic was interesting.
Oh, cool.
So that was crazy, because initially it was like, oh, I like you, Laura, you can pass it on to your friends can pass it on. And so when it became like people beyond my inner circle and my extended circle, mm-hmm. that felt really neat.
Do you feel like, are you the type of person that, like right now I'm talking about the chakras and teaching people about the chakras because I work with the chakras, and right now I'm at the sacral chakra, which is all about sexual energy. And so I'm introducing concepts and talking about things that make people really uncomfortable because it's about like sexual energy. So do you feel like you're a pusher of the boundaries, like kind of like Gwyneth Paltrow and her, conscious uncoupling thing? Or are you more like, I'm gonna answer the call to people who are interested in these things? Like, are you more reactionary or more,
I want to say proactive, in the sense, like when Oming was happening, we had a member who met her husband at One Taste. And I was like, oh, orgasmic meditation. This is crazy. I want to experience a workshop. So if it's not the right fit for me, it might be the right fit for you. And I could recommend that to someone. Mm-hmm. So I love learning and kind of being like a Sherpa of sorts, where I can point people in the right direction and be like, you're not going to like this, but you're going to love this type of lifestyle, or you love breath work. Breath work would be like the exact right fit for you. And I think there's probably something so subconscious there, where this feeling of being needed and this feeling of people relying on me for like information of sorts. But I really like being that connecting force in someone's life, either to the realtor where they buy their house, to their partner who they marry, to the job that they find, to their best friend that they have, whatever. I love being that catalyst. It brings me a lot of joy. But the sexual thing, yes, I love talking about things that make people feel annoyingly uncomfortable.
Yes.
We had an event called the Vagina Dialogues, an intimate conversation about your intimates. And then, we're working on an event right now called Let's Talk About Sex, Baby. But I love, in high school, actually it was college, I was that friend who like dragged my friends from Connecticut into New York City and then convinced everyone to pretend that they were 21 and act with confidence, and we'd get into nightclubs. And we did. And I would get them all into nightclubs, and then I would be like, now our challenge is we have to ask someone to buy us drinks. And, we'd do that. And then by the time I turned 21, clubbing was not fun for me at all. It was so much fun that I was underage, but it was fun. But I'm definitely a pusher.
Yeah. I was just going to say that you like give a slight little nudge. Yeah. You can do this.
No, I'm also a business coach. And honestly, that's been the most fun is being able to channel this energy I have of pushing and wanting to hop into someone's business and be able to have a consensual relationship with it.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, one of my best friends in the whole world, she recently became an entrepreneur, and I kept wanting to give her feedback or advice, and she was making some of the mistakes I've made, but it's so sensitive when it's your best friends. So I kept asking permission first, like, do you mind if I put on my coaching hat and give you some feedback? But she ended up joining one of my group coaching, and it's been really helpful to provide feedback for her in the confines with another individual present. So then she has an accountability partner that's not me.
Mm-hmm. So what is your advice for like anybody, not even entrepreneurs, somebody who has a job or a career or their own business, and they're looking to maybe like step it up a notch as the pusher? What are some questions they can ask themselves?
Oh, wow. That's a really, really big question. I think first and foremost is to turn the obstacles into learnings. From someone with personal experience who had a lot of obstacles this year, it was really hard at moments to not be like, why did this happen to me? Like, woe to me, woe to me. Yeah. But instead find the beautiful learning or silver lining that came out of it. So really, really, before you pass it up as like a dismissal of an obstacle or an obstruction, find what the meaning is behind it and how you can overcome it in the future or teach someone. I always see my obstacles as teachable moments for future people. Like, we had a fire this year in our apartment burned down, and I'm literally like a PSA for renter's insurance. Like, if you don't have renter's insurance, it happens to real people. Like, make sure you have renter's insurance. So again, if we could have at least saved, I mean, we had renter's insurance, but if we are at least saving like 5 people from the same fate, like, that makes me feel really happy.
Yeah.
In a gross, demented way, I guess.
No, that's actually a really good point. I think the reason why I asked you that question is because I see so many people, like way too many people, stay at their jobs or stay at a certain level in their business or stay at like, I guess like a stagnation.
Yeah.
They're willing to stay there versus the unknown of what could be better or what could, like grow.
This fear of failure. That's what all of my clients come to me. There's this fear of failure and this fear of sorry, I'm like, all the little things popped up. Fear of what's on the other side and the imposter syndrome of like stepping into their greatness. And I'm a really weird person where, like, I make plans backwards. I plan events backwards. Like, we talked, I liked you, you liked me. Let's plan an event. Let's put the event on the calendar, and we'll figure out all the logistics secondary. That's how I work. I'm not a ruminator. I'm not someone that overthinks for good or for bad. So my advice for people is to just, if it's intimidating and there's a big chunk ahead of you, bite it off in small chunks to make it more digestible, because it's so doable. It's just, you can't overwhelm yourself with like the bigger picture. You have to do it bite by bite by bite by bite.
That's so funny, because you mentioned that when we first talked, and I'm like that too. I'm like, I'm going to quit my job, and then I just quit it.
And you're like, no plan,
no backup. I just know what I want, and I make decisions really quickly, and it frustrates me when people aren't like that. I'm like, why do you need months to think about this? Just do it.
Right? Going to dinner in a big group of people who are like, what about this? What do you think? I'm like, I'll make the decision if you want, or just make a decision.
Yeah.
I then step into like the in charge person, which is kind of terrifying. But that's something I've learned, is to let go of, like, I used to be super competitive with my friend about making the itineraries for our trips. And I think it was that need of like people affirming my choices for restaurants and whatnot. And then I realized I don't really enjoy making these itineraries. Like, I really don't enjoy being in charge. I'd actually like to like sit back, relax, and enjoy the show pretty much. So I've relinquished it to her. And then she's funny because she's like, I don't really love I love making the itineraries, but I feel like people don't appreciate them. I'm like, oh no, people do. We're just lazy. We've become lazier because we trust you so much. But yeah, I make decisions quickly. And I think the other learning or the other advice I have for people stuck is always keep learning and always keep pushing towards something. And if you're stagnant, like a lot of things that frustrate me are when people are like, oh, I really want to be in this industry, or I want to do this, but I don't know how to get there. I don't have those qualifications. And I'm like, well, what are the bridge opportunities you see there? Can you volunteer for an organization? Can you take a course? They won't get out of their own way, or it costs money, so they're fearful of investing in themselves. And I think having an advocate or having a coach or having something that you pay for is like a good step in the right direction that you want to make a change.
Yeah, I agree. 100% agree. You have to invest in yourself.
And I remember the first year or two, I was like, oh, I'm not joining a co-working space. That's a lot of money. I'm not joining this. I'm not doing that. Like, I found excuses to be really cheap. And then I think I was cheap. Like I cheapened myself by being cheap. So, and no, I'm not saying like go buy a Rolls Royce, but in a way, imagining yourself in a Rolls Royce, you'll probably feel more worthy of a Rolls Royce than you would if you didn't get the Rolls Royce.
Yeah, that's true. Like both of my platforms, I've definitely made a shift in the energy and the message and the consciousness. And I definitely like lost a lot of followers, and it was like a really interesting transition. Did you have that as well?
What I've noticed the most, I haven't lost followers as much, but I definitely I had to turn off the unsubscribe notifications from MailChimp, because every time I send out a newsletter, I get like 200 unsubscribes. And you. But I used to have them individual, one by one, and a friend of mine was like, "You need those off because you're gonna destroy yourself." We have a pretty big list, so it's not the end of the world when people unsubscribe. But what I found is my personal Instagram has gained a lot more followers, and like a lot more people engage in my stories. Like I'll have my wedding, for example. I know it was my wedding, but we had like 1,000 views on our stories versus sometimes the 6 degrees, which has a bigger number, but it feels less engaged. And I think people are shifting towards, they want to see the real person. They don't want to see like the pretty version of the person.
Yeah, 100% true. How much of yourself do you feel like you need to involve in your brand?
Something that I struggle with all the time, especially when I'm writing the content. I'm like, how do I address it? How do I talk to you? I try to be pretty vulnerable to my audience, specifically through my newsletters. I will be very honest with like things that are happening. And it's interesting because you're sharing this super vulnerable thing, and then you'll see the 200 unsubscribes come through or someone mark you as spam. So I read a really great book that I highly recommend to everyone called The Alter Ego Effect. And it's this idea, when I'm on for my business, I'm still Emily, but I'm like Amelia. Like I'm my alter ego. I'm the front facing. I am the true version of myself, but like a stronger version of myself. So I feel less fragile with like remarks that are made or any feedback that's given when I'm wearing that alter ego.
Yeah. I learned that at a Tony Robbins event.
Oh,
My alter ego is Sasha Fierce. I like skipped Beyonce and I'm her alter ego.
Which is incredible, the story of Sasha Fierce. Like she's a Christian girl singing, at a choir, at a church choir, and now she's singing about riding up on your surfboard. Yeah. Very different message.
Yes. That's actually really great advice. Because like it's hard when you see comments and people unsubscribing and people not understanding what you're doing, and you're like, but I'm following my purpose, and you feel so rejected.
No, it's so easy to feel rejected, or I get comments from people being like, oh, you're like doing that networking thing. And I'm like, oh, they're saying that because I bombard them on Instagram and Facebook and they hate it and they're so annoyed by it. Or you could view it as, great, it worked. I'm now top of mind for them.
Yeah.
They know exactly what I'm up to.
Oh, see the mindset shift.
Yeah. You can just
I don't think we ever actually introduced 6 degrees. Do you want to
yeah, that thing we've been talking about.
for like 30 minutes. Do you want to introduce what it is?
Yeah, of course. So 6 degrees, as I mentioned earlier, it started as a side hustle. And the crux of it is to bring women in particular, but it is open to men and women, together in an intentional way. So at all of our events, you get everyone's bios, pictures, job titles, companies, and emails. And I do all the hard work for you, where I get a pre-match who you're meeting while networking. So you already can read up on it's usually 2 matches. You get to read up on your 2 matches prior to the event. And then you have an hour of programming, which can be like a fireside chat, a moderated panel, a workshop, a class of some sort. We've done dance classes. But what's really cool is you can be really focused in the connections you're making with your 2 matches. And then if there's anyone else in the room that you didn't have the chance to connect with, it's open where you can reach out to them following the event. And that was my biggest frustration when networking, was finding out years later that we were at the same networking event and we never had the chance to connect.
Yeah, that is such a good idea. How do you do the matches?
So I've set them up in an Excel. It's all human done. I've done matches up to 100 people, which was a lot. At that point, we had to like separate the room into stations, where I was like, meet your match at like the blue couch station. Yeah. But what I look for are just commonalities. And what's great is at our events, we have about a 40% repeat and 60% new. So I think of like problems that need to be solved. So for tonight, for example, we have an event in San Francisco, and I have a girl who plans a dessert goals festival, and I have a woman who is a co-founder of a CBD honey company. And I'm like, ooh, that could be a really interesting partnership. Maybe they can incorporate their honey and like the aspect of CBD into her dessert goals next year. So that's like what my brain looks like, and I'll make a match. Or similarly, it's being hosted at a really cute store that just opened that's looking to do more events in their store. So the honey person in the store would make sense in my brain to do like demos within the store. So
oh, wow, look at your brain go.
It's so annoying because I'm like to listen to people talk. Sometimes I'm like,
yeah,
this person, they need to meet. But that's what I did before I started. Like I was always making connections and matches, and it was so lonely because I was just email connecting people, hoping for the best, and there was no real measurable outcome that I could see. So I thought, why not do it in person?
Well, also I like your method, because when I go to networking events, it's so awkward because you're like, what do you do? What do you do? And it almost like comes with what can you do for me? And it's because you're not there to make friends. No. I mean, that's like a byproduct of sometimes getting to know somebody, but it's like, to me, that's very masculine. That's like very like, what are you going to do for me kind of thing. And it's like uncomfortable.
I think networking is one of the most uncomfortable things for people to envision. So I always really try to reframe it for individuals. Like, say you're at a workout class and you struck up a conversation with the girl in your workout class next to you. Would you consider that networking? No, you would consider that like making a new friend.
Yeah.
So I try to remind people that every day you're networking and you're making connections and you're building alliances, but you're doing it not in the confines of a space that's told that you have to be networking. Right. So when you go into that space, don't approach it as a transaction where it's like, I need to meet this person to fill this need, but rather as kind of like a game. Like gamify it, make fun, have fun with it. Like, what can you learn about someone, or what can you have someone tell you without you even asking?
Yeah.
And that's one of my favorite challenges, is to see if I can get someone to reveal where they live in the city without asking them.
Yeah. Well, I always ask, instead of what they do, what they love. Like, what are they passionate about? Because I really don't like that question. I also don't like when someone asks you for your Instagram account right away and then they look at your followers. I feel so like, ooh.
That's the new kind of like business card, I think.
That's like the new social ranking, I think. Like, how many followers do you have?
Yeah, but you get like, oh, I have this many followers, or I don't have this many followers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I always recommend leave your phone in your pocket or in your bag. If you do need your phone as a social cue, I recommend getting a pop socket. Or at least back in the day, this was a cool way for people to like strike up a conversation and ask a question. Like, what is this? The other thing I say is have social cues on your phone. So for example, if you look at my phone, I have like a picture of my husband, or people have pictures of their dogs, or they have pictures of their babies. And it's a great way to break the ice pretty immediately and be like, is that your dog? I have a dog that looks just like that. And you can find a connection pretty quickly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what is interesting you right now? Like, what topics?
I really enjoyed the breath work that I did, and I don't think I did any this year. I think the last one I did was last year, so I've been really into that. After our wedding, I've had a lot of people tell me that I'm very powerful. And so I've been really interested in understanding what that means and what I can do to unpack that a bit more. So that kind of self-exploration and learning more about the moon and learning more about astrology and learning more about crystals and all of that. And then the other thing that I'm into, what else am I into? Like, what am I into? That's a great question. I'm getting more into cannabis. And I never thought I would say that, but especially when I was cutting out alcohol, like pre-wedding diet, I was really I still am into my health, but I was really into my health, and I was taking more edibles just for like relaxing and calming down at the end of the night. And I really enjoyed the feeling of it and kind of like understanding that world a bit more.
It's legal in California, right?
Yeah, it's legal in California, so please don't arrest me. But whoever's listening. Yeah, it's legal in California, so we've done several events with Dosist, this brand out here, which just learning about the different effects of it, and I don't know, bringing it into the wellness aspect. It's been cool. Back to like the educational point. I love learning and sharing what I'm learning with people.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you wanted to share?
Let's see. Oh, we have so many amazing, I don't know when this is airing, but we have so many amazing events coming up. Especially if you're in New York or San Francisco, we're doing one event per week, and the topics are ranging from full moon circles to moon cycle, learning about your period and how your body syncs up with the moon, to more practical things like taxes and how to prepare for them, especially for your business. So definitely check out our website at 6degreessociety.com. And then the other aspect that I want we're also in LA. We're relaunching our LA chapter in January. So if you're in LA, look out for more LA events.
So what is I know we can't predict the future, but we can definitely set intentions.
Yeah.
What is your hope and dream for you and this business?
I would love for 6 Degrees Society to be something that we were able to scale where it reached pretty much every single market out there. And you could be traveling in Des Moines, Iowa, and have the same experience at a chapter in Des Moines, Iowa that you do in New York City. And there's expectations. So I'd love to scale it and figure out how that is scalable. either by like a franchise market, or if it means like boots on the ground, identifying ambassadors. So that's something I'm still figuring out. And the other thing is creating more of an online community for individuals to really connect with one another in a stronger way. So once they leave an event, they'll have like a place in an area where they can sift through who they've met before, and it's not as old fashioned as a PDF. And they're able to continue connecting and selling and promoting and learning and doing all those things.
Like a LinkedIn type of thing?
Yeah, exactly. Like a LinkedIn, but like a personal LinkedIn, not an impersonal one.
And not as weird as LinkedIn.
The weirdest messages. I'm like,
weirdest messages. The weirdest. It's like, what?
I want to have a developer in Bangladesh. Thank you very much. Some particular ones. But yeah, I want that. And I also love speaking more. I've so much been a facilitator and brought people together, but I haven't put myself in the forefront the way that I would like to start doing a bit more in terms of speaking and telling my story. I love doing podcasts and interviews, but getting out in front of the people, not just as a presenter or a moderator, but actually as the speaker.
Awesome. And our event is January
14th, I think.
In New York City.
Yes.
So I'll put the links in the show notes.
Perfect. Yeah, it's our first event of the year. Definitely setting the intentions, which I'm really excited about.
Me too. I'm so excited. So where can people find you and 6 Degrees?
So you can find us on our website, all spelled out, 6degreessociety.com, or on Instagram, which is all spelled out with underscores between 6 and degrees. And or you can follow me personally at EmilyAMerrell.com. Well, Emily A. Merrell on Instagram, or EmilyMerrell.com if you want to check me out.
So last question. What is your definition of your dream life, and are you living it?
My definition of my dream life is, and it's so cliche. Everyone has this one, but it's this feeling of being able to leave and do what I want when I want to do it without repercussions. So financial stability is definitely a huge theme there. I feel like I'm living half of my dream life. Like, we live in a beautiful apartment. I love my husband. I have a great husband. I have a dog that came with the husband. Those are all goals that I had for myself. We have a car. We own a car now. Like, how nuts is that? I never thought I'd own a car.
Yeah.
He owns a car. I drive the car. And so I feel like it's more of that dream life, and this adulting life is coming into view. Well, for so long, I really, really was kind of scrimping and feeling like I had to live on the 6th floor walk up. So the learnings that I have now are, I'm letting myself enjoy the moments, the big and the small moments that come into my life every single day.
I love that. That's so well said. You're going to have to come back on and give us some business advice.
Yes, I'd be happy.
We didn't even get into all of that.
Happy to, anytime.
Yeah.
So I would be honored.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for creating this beautiful society.
Thank you so much for having me on this and for sharing your energy and asking such poignant questions.
I try.
So good. They were so good. I'm usually the question asker, so it's weird to be in the reverse seat.
Yeah.